Imagine it's Friday afternoon. The weekend is knocking, but instead of kicking back, you're about to dive into a challenge. You've got an idea, a ticking clock, and 48 hours to turn that concept into something that could make you a millionaire. That's the premise behind $1 Million Weekend by Noah Kagan. Sounds like a stretch, right? But Noah's approach is proof that, with focus and creativity, you can bypass all the overthinking and go straight to action. What makes this book stand out isn't just the weekend hustle concept. It's how Noah blends strategy with storytelling, making entrepreneurship feel less intimidating and more like an exciting game. The goal isn't perfection, it's momentum. It's about stepping into that zone where you're so fired up, ideas start clicking together faster than you can jot them down. This isn't some overnight success fantasy either. Noah's a pro at finding smart, scrappy ways to test ideas, spot what works, and drop what doesn't all before Monday rolls around. And by the end of it, you'll realize that the weekend might just be enough time to create a business with real potential. Who knows? That spontaneous spark could be what gets you to your $1 million breakthrough. So, Noah Kagan kicks things off with a big idea. Most of us overthink the process of starting a business. We get caught up in endless planning, worrying about every little detail before we even get started. But what if you flipped that on its head? What if, instead of waiting for the perfect moment, you gave yourself just 48 hours to launch something? It's like diving into a pool without checking the water temperature. You're fully committed from the get-go. The power of constraints. One of the first points Noah makes is that constraints can be your biggest ally. When you have only a weekend, you're forced to cut out all the fluff and focus on what truly matters. It's like when you're packing for a trip and suddenly realize you can only take one bag. You start asking yourself, what do I really need? The same applies to launching a business. Noah emphasizes that when time is tight, you get straight to the core, validating your idea quickly and figuring out if it's worth pursuing. Example time. The landing page trick. Noah shares an example that's equal parts clever and gutsy. When he was brainstorming ideas, instead of spending weeks building a product, he put up a simple landing page. The catch? He didn't even have the product yet. The goal was to see if people would sign up or even hit the buy now button. If they did, it meant the idea had legs. If they didn't, it was back to the drawing board. This isn't about being sneaky. It's about testing interest before you pour in time and money. It's like showing someone a movie trailer to see if they'd want to watch the whole film. The sprint versus marathon mindset. Here's where Noah's approach really clicks. He treats the weekend challenge like a sprint, not a marathon. Think about how sprinters give everything they've got for those short bursts. It's intense, focused, and full on. Noah argues that in business, we should embrace these short, intense sprints more often. Instead of spreading yourself thin over months, you channel all your energy into a few days of high-impact work. It's a bit like cramming for an exam. Sure, it's tough, but the pressure pushes you to perform at your peak. Dealing with the noise. Another key lesson from the book is learning how to block out the noise. When you've got only 48 hours, distractions are your worst enemy. Noah's advice? Cut out anything that doesn't directly contribute to getting your product or service in front of people. He compares it to cleaning out your closet. Keep only what's essential and ditch the rest. It's a no-nonsense approach that keeps you laser-focused. Turning ideas into reality fast. One of the biggest takeaways is how Noah encourages you to take your idea from concept to reality in lightning speed. He suggests starting with the simplest version of your idea, what he calls the minimum viable product, MVP. For example, if you want to sell an online course, don't waste time perfecting a 20-hour masterclass. Instead, create a short value-packed session and get it out there. The goal is to learn by doing and tweak as you go, not to wait until everything's flawless, because it never will be. Building a tribe fast. Noah doesn't just talk about creating products. He emphasizes the importance of building a community around your brand. It's not just about making something and hoping people show up. It's about engaging directly with potential customers from the start. Think of it like throwing a party. Sure, you've got a killer playlist and snacks, but without inviting the right people and hyping it up, it's going to be pretty empty. Noah's approach involves getting your audience excited even before you launch. Using tools like email lists, social media, and content that sparks curiosity. He's got this great analogy where he compares early supporters to the first few people who show up at a party. If they're having fun, others want to join in too. That early momentum can be the difference between a business that fizzles out and one that gains traction quickly. Don't overcomplicate the process. One of Noah's main messages is to keep things simple. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that a business idea needs to be groundbreaking or complex to succeed. But in reality, some of the most successful businesses are built on straightforward concepts. Noah encourages readers to focus on solving specific problems with simple solutions, like a restaurant that only sells one dish, but does it exceptionally well. He points out that it's better to do one thing right and grow from there than to get lost in trying to do everything perfectly. Iterate like crazy. Another concept that stands out in the book is the importance of quick iteration. Noah is a big believer in launching first and refining as you go. He mentions how many entrepreneurs spend ages perfecting every detail only to find out that no one actually wants what they're selling. Instead, his strategy is to release a rough version, get feedback, and then improve. He likens it to sculpting. You start with a block of clay and keep refining until you have something beautiful, but you need that rough start to begin shaping it. The Weekend Challenge Blueprint. Noah also provides a practical roadmap for taking on the Weekend Challenge. It's broken down into key steps. 1. Friday evening. Idea selection. Choose an idea that excites you but is also something simple enough to execute quickly. 2. Saturday morning. Market validation. Test if there's actual demand. Set up a quick landing page, run some ads, or reach out to your network to gauge interest. 3. Saturday afternoon. Build the MVP. Create the simplest version of your product or service that still delivers value. Forget the bells and whistles for now. 4. Sunday. Launch and get feedback. Put it out there. Send it to your email list, share it on social media, and ask for honest feedback. Use this feedback to make immediate improvements. Real-life case studies. Noah doesn't just talk in theory, he shares real examples of people who took on the Weekend Challenge and found success. From digital products like ebooks to physical goods and services, these case studies highlight that the framework works across different industries. What ties them all together is that each entrepreneur took a leap, learned on the fly, and refined their approach based on what worked and what didn't. Overcoming the inner critic. A recurring theme in the book is battling that voice in your head telling you it's not going to work or that you're not ready. Noah's direct advice: ignore it. He compares it to running on a treadmill. At some point, you'll want to stop. But if you push through that discomfort, you'll find your second wind. The same applies to launching a business in a weekend. The self-doubt and fear of failure are inevitable, but the only way to silence them is through action. Real-life case studies. Noah doesn't just talk in theory, he shares real examples of people who took on the Weekend Challenge and found success. From digital products like ebooks to physical goods and services, these case studies highlight that the framework works across different industries. What ties them all together is that each entrepreneur took a leap, learned on the fly, and refined their approach based on what worked and what didn't. Overcoming the inner critic. A recurring theme in the book is battling that voice in your head telling you it's not going to work or that you're not ready. Noah's direct advice: ignore it. He compares it to running on a treadmill. At some point, you'll want to stop. But if you push through that discomfort, you'll find your second wind. The same applies to launching a business in a weekend. The self-doubt and fear of failure are inevitable, but the only way to silence them is through action. Real-life case studies. Noah doesn't just talk in theory, he shares real examples of people who took on the Weekend Challenge and found success. From digital products like ebooks to physical goods and services, these case studies highlight that the framework works across different industries. What ties them all together is that each entrepreneur took a leap, learned on the fly, and refined their approach based on what worked and what didn't. Overcoming the inner critic. A recurring theme in the book is battling that voice in your head telling you it's not going to work or that you're not ready. Noah's direct advice: ignore it. He compares it to running on a treadmill. At some point, you'll want to stop. But if you push through that discomfort, you'll find your second wind. The same applies to launching a business in a weekend. The self-doubt and fear of failure are inevitable, but the only way to silence them is through action. Mindset matters. Lastly, Noah dives into the mindset behind moving fast. He's big on the idea that entrepreneurship is as much about psychology as it is about tactics, fear of failure, the need for perfection, and the endless pursuit of more information. These are the things that hold most people back. Noah's advice? Just start. There's a quote he loves that goes, "The best way to learn is to do." It's not about being reckless. It's about realizing that the best insights come from action, not analysis. So, by the end of $1 Million Weekend, you're left with this powerful notion. You don't need months, fancy tools, or perfect timing to start something meaningful. You need focus, the willingness to take risks, and the determination to make it happen fast. Whether you're someone who's been stuck in the idea phase, or you're just looking for a new way to approach your side hustle, this book is like a shot of adrenaline. It's proof that sometimes all you need is a tight deadline, a clear goal, and the guts to see it through. The conclusion of $1 Million Weekend by Noah Kagan wraps up by emphasizing the value of testing and iterating ideas quickly. Kagan advocates for the importance of taking action, learning from mistakes, and continually refining your approach to achieve success. He reinforces that significant outcomes often result from small incremental improvements and bold experimentation. By applying the principles outlined in the book, readers can effectively tackle challenges and seize opportunities, ultimately driving their ventures to greater heights. Thank you for listening.